Welcome back. In this segment, we'll talk about user interface. As I showed in the previous segment, there are features that you can modify inside Google Earth Engine to make a different view completely inside the map or inside the console. And let's get right to this example. So this first example I want to show you is part of the user interface example that they have posted in Google Earth Engine on the Google Earth Engine website. And this is a very simple example, as you can see there. We'll just go through the script first, as it's very short. So on line 2, this is the first time we are talking about this function that's called UI.button there. The way that Google Earth Engine can change the user interface is by using such function. And these functions start with the UI dot first. And there are various features that you can add into the user interface. Here we're just showing you a feature that's called button. And we name this button with the name Click Me. And this is how we just name this button that we'll be displaying. And then on line 6 to 8, we utilize a function that is called onClick. OnClick is perhaps one more advanced level of the user interface. So imagine if someone is developing a web interface on your phone or on the website. They can develop a button that is on a website, and then they can develop some kind of function that tells the computer whenever someone is clicking that button, something is going to happen on the app or going to happen on the website. So in this example, on line 6, this is an example of clicking. So if someone clicks this button that we developed called Click Me, what is going to happen is we are going to print this hello world inside of the console, as we'll show the example as we run this script. And then after all, don't forget on line 11, this is how we print the button, and so we can make sure this function is working, and also make sure the user interface has been modified. So let's just click the run on here. Then we will focus on the console here. So now you're seeing a button that was created, and on top of the button it says Click Me. So that matched exactly as what we wanted to do for the button. Then so technically, if we click this button, it should tell us hello world. So let's try that. So I'm gonna just click on the Click Me button here. So then voila, you'll see down below it shows hello world. So as you can imagine, this can go tremendously more complicated. So this is simply just the fundamental building blocks of the user interface. There are a tremendous amount of examples that you can look at on Google Earth Engine website, but you can just simply use your imagination, just run wild with it, and you can basically modify the Google Earth Engine look from the traditional panels that we talked about before into a panel or user interface that fits your own need. So let's get to another example that's a little bit more complicated. So let's first look at this example here. This example also I have pulled it off of the Google Earth Engine tutorial example. And in this example, we are not modifying something that is inside the console. As the previous example, we are modifying things inside the map in this example. So first we start with an image collection and also the different extracting image in that regard. So this is not gonna be new material, and I'm not gonna cover all of them. So that's from line 1 to 6 there. So this is not just, this is like regular example of importing code that we have covered in previous examples. So what's more advanced in this example is starting on line 9. And in this particular example code, there's something that you will see that is brand new that is called ui.map.layer. And this is on line 16 as what I'm highlighted there on the screen, as you can see also. And once we develop something that is an image layer, we can use this ui.map.layer to add this image onto our map and to display it. And in this example, we are displaying a composite image from the Landsat 8 archive. And then to go one step more complicated, we'll start on line 22. And this is where the interesting interactive coding that, as I mentioned before, the clicking function. In this example, we are building a slider that you can put into your user interface as an input to tell the computer, I want image from some day to another day. And then within this data range that we tell the computer will grab the image from that duration and does it on the fly. And then this slider is interactive in the sense that all the results processed will be instantaneous. So as you are moving that slider inside the map, the result in the background displayed on the map will be instantaneously changing. So instead of me just waving my hands here, I'm going to show you real quick what this looks like. So after we hit run here, you'll be able to see something new that is on top of the map here. And this is the panel where my mouse is focusing on. This is a new panel we have just constructed there. And what this does is, as I mentioned before, it's trying to tell the computer the different years or different days that we want to filter the Landsat 8 image archive to display the image in the background there. And here, right now it's displaying from just the year 2020. And we can change that to, for example, 2018. If I click on this cell, it will take a little bit of time since we're displaying the entire Landsat archive. But as you can see, the background image changes instantaneously in this example. So this is very useful if someone wanted to look at, for example, change maps, and they don't want to go into the script and then change the lines of code of the numbers, and they can simply just use this little toggle or switch that you build to change the outcome or the result that they want to see. So this is completely a different dimension of coding, and that's very similar to building a website in terms of building widgets and helping the users to better use your script. And the other example, so this is the example that is basically how we can do the user interface. And there is another example that I want to get into. And before I show you, I don't want to scare you because this one is very complex. But bear in mind, that example is building on top of exactly the foundational script that I just showed you, the two previous examples. That's how they are building brick by brick into this complex user interface. So I'm gonna just show you this example real quick. And if you can't follow along, there are examples that I will be posting on our GitHub site for you to look at later on. So as I mentioned before, if we go to this example, there are lines of code here. And obviously, the first time you're looking at it, it might be scary to you. There's a total of 225 lines of code. But bear in mind, if you get the fundamental part of the user interface ideas, you'll be able to read through this very quickly. So I'm just going to give you some of the fundamental or the critical pieces here. So first you will see this UI.panel on line 11 where I'm highlighting. This is basically constructing a panel inside the map, and you will see an example very soon after I run this. The second one I want to point you at is this UI.label. And this is very simply just adding some texts inside of the panel that we constructed. And this is going to tell us the various information that we want the user to do, or what the function is doing inside the panel. Then the next critical piece I wanted to highlight is called UI.checkbox. And this is an interactive example of constructing a checkbox so the user can click on it. And in this case, it's building something that's called filter to map center. And another example right underneath on line 24, this is called UI.textbox. And this is where users can fill in texts as inputs for the script to run by itself. And obviously, there are a lot of repetition here. UI.button we've covered previously. And we're just going to go quickly down to line 74 there. So line 74 is where all the visual parameters will be look like. And here we are using the user.label as we showed before. And this is where we can tell the Google Earth Engine to build this user interface to match exactly what we wanted to do. And here you will see hopefully some familiar code, such as the UI.select, and also some other functions that you will be seeing here that's a little bit more advanced, I would say. So for example, on line 84, refresh map layer that is telling the Google Earth Engine every time when I input a value in this script, the map will be refreshed. So we are not just piling new results layer on layer here. And at the end, I'm just going to breeze through this just to show you the fundamental frame of this user interface. And I just want to show you this fundamental piece here, the app.boot, and then where the function is empty here. This is simply where we put all of the panels and everything that we have built inside of this script into a giant summary function. And then inside this summary function, we have imported all the panels that we have built. So if you would remember all of these app.intro.panel, filter panel, picker panel, all of these panels are what we have built earlier in the script, and we just sum all of them up together inside of this giant app.boot, and this will then be printed into the map itself for us to display. So as you can see, in this script, there is nothing, almost 99% of the things that you're seeing in here is not going to be as same as to the Google Earth Engine programming to process image, for example. So this, of course, requires a lot of work on the developer to develop this script, but it will tremendously pay off, because all of these scripts that you spend more time developing, someone else can take this script and run it, and they don't need to pay attention to the script anymore. They can simply just use whatever the map application that you have built down underneath. So I'm just going to show you after this runs what it looks like. So first we hit the run here, and we're just going to open up the map down below. So as you can see, this looks very, very different from the traditional Google Earth Engine map from previous tutorials. And this is because we have built all of these different informations inside of this left panel. And inside of this panel, there are different functions that we have already built. So for example, as I mentioned before, you can put in the date here. So if we don't want to change the stock example, we can put in our own. So for example, if we want to look at something like very recently, 2020 November 1st, for example, we can type it in there. Then we can also put in a date, a large range. Of course, sometimes it won't yield a lot of information or a lot of image. Let's just put a much larger range just to be safe. Then to be able to use it, the checkbox function that I have just mentioned earlier, as you can see on the screen, we can uncheck it to filter to Map Center. And then after we do that, we can just simply click this Apply Filter. And now you're seeing an image that is collected between October 1st to November 3rd of 2020. And then there are various functions that you can see on the left panel there. I'm not gonna cover all of them. As you can see, this is very straightforward in terms of using it, because there are literally instructions to what you need to do, like such as select image as number 2, select visualization number 3. So as you can see in this example, it is very, very intuitive for someone who have zero coding experience to use this and be able to play around with remote sensed image and learn more about remote sensing in this way. But as I mentioned before, the trade-off of providing this convenience is going to be on the developer because you are going to develop something that is more advanced and require more knowledge of using the user interface. So after you have developed something like this, Google Earth Engine have worked on something and introduced such feature that is called the Google Earth Engine apps. And what app is simply, if we go back to the script here, you will see if someone is using this application, they can simply just pull down the drop-down menu, and they will see all the script on the top there. They can modify it whatsoever. But if someone who has no idea of coding inside Google Earth Engine, this will be super confusing because all these scripts are going to confuse the heck out of someone if they do not understand this. So Google Earth Engine apps is a way that you can simply just hide everything inside this script and just showing the user what this user interface is. So let me just show you an example of that. And first we start by clicking apps. And inside apps, as we can see, you can manage different apps that you have developed. And we can start with building a new app. And in this particular example, I'm not going to build it since I have built one before. But I'm just going to go through these, each one of them just to show you how you can do it. And then I will pull up an example that I have developed previously. So this is very straightforward. App name is something you can do. So you can just name it as, for example, this one is we are looking at Landsat 8 image selector. And then it will tell you the URL to this app. And then if you have a Google Cloud account, you can link your Google Cloud account to this application. And that's not a must to do. It's just optional. And then you can restrict access to this app. So for example, I developed something, I just want my advisor to see it or my research group to see it. I can simply add their user account inside here. So whoever is put in here will have access to this application that we share with them. And then this function is called public gallery. And since this function of Google Earth Engine apps has been rolled out for a while, so a couple years now, so there is a collection of Google Earth Engine apps that has already been built. And if we just click on this public apps gallery, you'll be able to see there are different galleries that you can look into. So for example, so this one, I have only one in here. But that is basically where you can tell Google Earth Engine, I want to share my application publicly. We can just click this box and it will appear in their public gallery. And it's obviously going to be very useful if you mention what your application does, so on and so forth. So you can just write in here, this is a app that select Landsat 8 and display it. So that's how you can describe it. And more intuitively, you can also put a thumbnail. So you can import a picture to here to make your application more intuitive. And then the source code. So this is a part where I mentioned before, you can hide the source code of your application as your choose. And after you select something like that, you can click this publish icon. Since I didn't fill in everything up there yet, so it's not gonna let me. But after you click this publish button that's being highlighted a little bit gray here, you'll be able to build an app. And let me just open up an app that I built before and show you the example of that. So as I mentioned before, in this manage app, I have built an app before, and this app is called Image Composite Explorer. And let's just click on that. So in this app, I've built very similar to the example that we had before. And on the left panel, there are different functions and features that you can use. I have put in detailed instructions there for anyone to use. But as you can see on the top, there's no bars that you can drop down to look at the source code of this application. And this will be very clear if you want to share this with someone who has zero experience in coding inside Google Earth Engine. They will be very happy that you have developed something that is such straightforward for them to use. And you can't be as much direct or simple as you want. So here I have mentioned everything that anyone can do. So choose an image collection, start date, end date, and so on and so forth. All the different functions that is not scripting for someone to do. So this is Google Earth Engine user interface and the applications. And this marks the last segment in the training tutorial. And thanks for watching.